So super excited to chat. I think for this conversation, we're going to dive into why traditional coaching really hasn't made the impact that everyone's expecting. And I think, as folks were joining on, we asked a question of, who's using traditional coaching versus AI coaching, and the conversation can even start as coaching even happening, right, John?
That's I that I and the answer is no. I mean, I guess we should probably define like what real coaching is, because I think a lot of people might think that they are coaching, but they're not. Again, they're probably deal chasing or just trying to close business, but not actually coaching the rep on how to get better. So I think it takes a lot of forms, but what I see out there, it's one of the most important things a manager can do, but it's the thing that they have the least time to do, right? Because they have to run the reports, they have to be in the meetings, they have to do their one-on-ones with reps, they have to do all these different things, and it really doesn't leave a lot of time. And the other part that we'll get into is I think it's just subjective, right? It's one of those things where, I'm going to coach you based on my style, based on what got me to where I want, where I am, versus the coaching that you need, right? Because your style
Mhm.
is different than mine. So I might tell you to do something, Darren, like, hey, why don't you try this? And you'll try it, but because you're not me and because that's not really the problem, it's not going to work as well. And then, you're going to come back and I'm going to try something else. And then I'm ultimately going to get frustrated because nothing's working. But it's not because you're not good at your job. It's just because I'm not addressing the right problem. Or I'm addressing one, or I'm nitpicking on one thing that then positions you as, okay, this is what your problem is. I mean, we'll talk about this, but it's like sometimes you listen to calls and the rep just might have a bad day. You know what I mean? Like they might just have had a bad day or a bad call on that call. That doesn't mean they're a bad rep. But when you look at it as a siloed thing of like, ooh, let me just watch this one call out of the 10 calls that the rep has done because I got to check off the box that I got to do my coaching today. It's, oh, yeah, that rep's terrible. And it's like, no, they're not terrible. They just maybe screwed up for a few minutes and maybe had a bad call beforehand and got, distracted. So I think it's a challenge right now in a lot of ways that we can unpack. And I know why it's not happening. So
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And, I think the crux of it too is, you were talking a little bit about this earlier is, when, everyone's a new manager at some point. Are they getting the right training, and are they getting the right access to all the different data points and styles and communication styles that exist? And
yeah.
it's impossible as an IC. You just can't, right? Like it doesn't exist. And that's starting to change, right? As we
Mhm.
start to see availability to information and being able to listen to calls. How many more calls can you listen to today than you could last, and 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it
Oh,
is.
yeah. I mean, you couldn't even listen to him 5 years ago.
Yeah.
You'd have to literally, put your headset on and listen into the call, right? Whereas now, yeah, you get all these different call recording solutions, but again, the problem is the time to do that, right? So if I'm sitting there and I mean, let's face it, right? I mean, the optimal amount of rep to manager ratio is what, 5 or 6 to 1 or something like that. But most managers carry at least 10, give or take. So you got 10 reps who are making however many dials and calls and meetings a week, right?
Hmm.
Even if you just did one a week and it's a 30-minute call. And this is the problem with the call recording tools, by the way, is that, okay, great. Say, Darren, you and I, like, say I'm your manager and whatever, and you make a call. So there's a 30-minute call, hopefully not an hour call, a 30-minute call. Well, now I got to listen to that call. And people, oh, well, you can just skip to no, I can't. Like, type in, skip to the pricing. It's like, no, because maybe something that you said at minute 5, it dictated what happened at minute 18 when you started talking about pricing. So I have to listen to the whole call. And then they say, well, you can listen on 2x. No, I can't, because I
Yeah.
need to listen for tonality. I need to listen for inflection. I need to listen to how you presented that question or whatever to understand the objection that the person had. So I literally have to listen to the whole 30 minutes as is and then coach on it. Then say, well, okay, now let me go back to that section and give you my feedback on this and this. So you're talking 45 minutes to an hour of time for a manager to really do coaching the right way on every 30-minute call. 10 reps, one call a week, 10 hours. I don't know about you, Dan. I don't have 10 hours to carve out of my week to do coaching when I'm being yelled at from my boss to where's the forecast? You can hit your numbers. What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Like I just don't have that kind of time, which is why it doesn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's that's the perfect segue because like in terms of investing resources, you think about hiring a new account executive or SDR and how much investment goes into making them successful. We don't do that with managers to make them successful, right?
Not even
They
close.
step in day one, it's go have your one-on-ones, start
Yep.
looking at the data points, start listening to calls. What would
Hmm.
you do differently, right? And
Right.
having that whole perception, John, is just being able to hone in on a rep's certain style and take all the different contexts and everything, bring it together is really where the power comes in. And so, uh, in terms of why coaching or coaching, the traditional way of coaching, I should say, isn't good enough, right?
Hmm.
Sales managers aren't getting trained, as we just discussed. Time, as John just discussed, no one has enough time to do the amount of coaching that's needed to be successful, right? If you think about the most successful account executives, SDRs, BDRs that are out there, they're the ones doing all that extra work and all that training and enablement on their own. They're finding
Hmm.
other means to learn, right? Because
Yep.
their manager isn't spending 10 hours a week on coaching.
Nope.
Um, and businesses, failing to see the benefits of, all right, this rep's going to leave in a few months or a year if we don't properly coach them correctly.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, we're going to invest all that time and resources and bringing on someone new, but still make a big miss on properly investing in those leaders and those managers.
I'll throw one more out there for you and maximize that screen. By the way, we're looking at the non-presentation version of that. But I'll throw another one out there why it isn't good enough, and I think it's a lot to do with the subjectivity that I was mentioning earlier. Look, like it or not, a lot of people are pretty sensitive these days. Like I'm not gonna, throw stones at any generation or anything like that for this call, but what I'm noticing out there is that a lot of people, like, first of all, I don't think a lot of people have gotten really good direct feedback in their lives, in general. Okay. Now I'm a Gen Xer. I'm one of those like, shut up, just tell me you know what I mean? I'll take it. Like I'll take all the negative feedback you got and I'll internalize it and I'll figure it out. And I actually want that negative feedback because I want to learn how to get better. But like it or not, like we're in a situation where a lot of people are pretty damn sensitive. And so what happens is a rep sometimes, even if the feedback from the manager is legit and is real, if that rep doesn't think that their manager likes them, they're going to take it very personally and they're not going to internalize it. They're going to be like, well, he just doesn't like me or she just doesn't like me. That's why. And sometimes, unfortunately, depending on how the manager actually provides that feedback, because quite frankly, maybe sometimes the manager doesn't like the rep, right? So they give harsher feedback or more or whatever it is. Then we have a little bit of an HR nightmare scenario here because now the rep might go and complain to management, HR, whatever, that says they're not getting treated fairly. And now the manager has to spend hours with HR talking about it. So unfortunately, what I see is I see a lot of managers actually taking a very, very basic approach to coaching, and it's almost always positive because they're like, "Oh no, you're doing a great job," and it's not getting to the core stuff because they don't want to open up that Pandora's box of potentially offending the rep that they're talking to, however, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, and then being stuck in the, oh my God, now I have to explain myself and be in five more meetings that I don't want to be in. So I think that's one of the trends that I'm seeing. Whereas I don't think coaching happened at all in the past. It was kind of on the site, hey, follow me and just pay attention type of stuff. Then it shifted to, okay, we got these tools and stuff like that. But now we're shifting into this world of, I don't like feedback. And if I don't feel like I like who is giving me the feedback, then I'm not going to absorb it and I'm probably more going to be upset about it. Whereas AI is, and I'm going to put this in air quotes here, objective. It's a technology that is giving me feedback and it's giving it to me instantly. It's not waiting until the end of the week when, maybe here's an interesting one, right? Say I had a bad call on Monday And that's the one, Darren, you decide to evaluate for me. And so I go, whatever. I brush it off on Monday. But then the rest of the week, I crush it, right? Like, oh man, I was doing great and whatever it is. And then I sit in my one-on-one with you on Friday and you start nitpicking about the one bad call that I had that week. Now I'm demoralized. Now my whole week that I thought was great is now basically thrown away and I'm frustrated. And so there's so many things, and I think the subjectivity component of somebody giving feedback is a challenge on both sides right now, which is what I think AI can solve for us.
Yeah, and John, you made a couple of like really great points, like learning how to deliver the right type of feedback at the right moment. It is just like it doesn't exist. It comes through practice. I still remember my first time having to deliver tough feedback. I
Well,
had butterflies in my stomach, right?
yeah,
Like it wasn't easy. Being able to combine that with when's the right time, when's the right moment. Is it are you looking at the right data set of or the
yeah,
right volume of calls and meetings and everything else versus, finding that one because, let's be honest, we also all look for, when you say go give feedback, like we really should be praising our,
yeah.
our folks more often than not, but we go out there and we look to nitpick. And that's
You
the other
gotta
part
find, yeah.
about managing is go talk about the great things you've done too, because
Mhm.
it's really easy to go out there and find the one time where you messed up or something didn't go right or according to plan and then give a whole bunch of feedback on that one instance.
Yeah. I mean, I know for a fact that I think I give great feedback. I think I give very direct feedback, right? Just because I've been in this game for 30 years here for crying out loud. So I've seen a lot. The problem is my delivery of it is not good at all for the wrong people. Now, if you're from Boston and you and I like connect, then and I can come right at you and be like, Deren, like, come on, like you're from New York, so I can be very direct with you, Deren. Be like, dude, like that call sucked, man. Like, come on, you know better than that, right? And like, if you and I are the same personality type, right, like a high D on the disc scale, and we like that thing, then you and I are going to have great conversations about your coaching and your feedback and those type of things. But if you're not from Boston or New York and you are not direct and that type of stuff and my style comes at you, you're gonna revolt against my style. I mean, I see it in training all day long. Like when I train in the Northeast, I can be me, I can drink my coffee, I can go a million miles an hour, I can drop the F-bomb 50 times. But if I go down into a different region of the United States or internationally, if I take my same approach to the audience, that it won't resonate at all. And so I think it's recognizing it, but it's impossible to understand all the different nuances of everybody's personalities to make the adjustment so that you can so that they'll listen to you. I think that's the key. It's like once you shut down, like if my approach doesn't resonate with you, you shut down. And now you're not listening to a single word that I'm saying, no matter how valid it might be.
Yeah, and the other big piece of that too is like the goal setting, right? Like when you think about how like what the purpose of giving feedback is, you touched on a good
Mhm.
point in terms of like as feedback evolves, like I always like to say a PIP, the best outcome of a PIP is you're saving that rep. It's not to
Mhm.
get them out of the company. That costs
Yep.
time and money to replace that person. The
Mhm.
best outcome is you can use that PIP to help that person up level. And how many times does that happen out of 10? Zero, one,
Yeah.
maybe two. Like
Yeah.
it
The
it
PIP is
doesn't exist,
basically
right?
might as
And
well walk out the door. Like if I get put on a if I'm a rep and I'm getting put on a PIP, I'm like, all right, I'm looking for a job. Thank you very much. See you later.
yeah,
Yeah.
but to your point, that's, if you're not delivering the right type of feedback and they don't understand what they're trying to accomplish and to begin with, like they could be going down this path, this rabbit hole of constructive or negative feedback without ever hearing a positive thing on a great week where they close two deals.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
And so I think that's a great point. And it's really an understatement of, being able to conceptualize how complex, adding the human element into sales is, right? You're not just
So
reviewing a
much.
piece of code or a piece of software, that person on the other line, the one-on-one coaching between your manager and or yourself and your team, it's different for everybody. And like you said, personalization, identifying the weaknesses, a lot of things you see here up on this slide are really what we should all be doing. But instead, we just paint a broad stroke and hope for the best.
Yep. That's yeah, you just throw a dart at the dartboard, man, blindfolded and say, hopefully this works. And that's, I think that the goal setting one, just to tap on that for a second, again, the best managers have to adjust those goals. Yes, we should be working with, the rep to assign those goals. But, the way I look at it is you got your A, B, and C reps, you got your great reps, your average reps, and your not so great reps. The A reps, yes, it's their goal. Like, hey, at the end of the year, yeah, you hit your quota, whatever. What else do you want personally that's going to drive you here? Maybe it's more time off with your family. Maybe it's drive a Bugatti or something like that. Whatever. Cool. That's your goal. Let's drive towards that. The B reps, it's like you work together on midterm goals, right? So it's like, okay, this quarter, what do you think we should be able to do here and how we can do this? Whereas the C reps are struggling. So and what I've learned is the C reps are C reps because they're kind of, and I want to say this, they're used to losing, and losing is a habit. And so they're usually on a downward spiral of something. And so you have to stop that downward spiral, and you can't talk about big lofty goals when you're in the shit, right? You have to think about, okay, let's do super short-term goals like today. Like, can you make 50 dials today? Right? You haven't been able to hit your numbers yet. So forget about responses here for a second. Today, can you hit 50? Yes, great. Good job. You did that right. Tomorrow, can you make 50 dials and maybe get through get through 4 or 5 gatekeepers and have a decent conversation? You did that? Awesome job today. Tomorrow, the next day, maybe try to get a conversation, right? And so you do these micro things, and what you do is you build the momentum back up so that they start moving in the right direction, right? But again, the nuances of that and the knowledge it takes and the experience it takes to identify BC and reps, and then what goals you should be setting and personalizing each coaching session and all that stuff, it's mind numbing. I mean, it really is. I mean, maybe if that was my only job and I had 10 reps to do it, and I didn't have to chase deals, I didn't have to sit in stupid internal meetings, and that was it, maybe I could figure this out for my 10 reps. But then you got two of them that get promoted, you got two new coming in, you got to figure out the whole thing again. Good luck with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
18. There you go. We got somebody in the chat who's got 18 reps. That is fucking brutal. Like there's like you're running around, I guarantee you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off, just like firefighting everywhere you go. Because there's just no way you can be strategic with 18 reps.
Hey, Teresa, I ain't gonna lie. That's the best way to talk about what John was saying earlier, though, with hard work and making your own path. Like that's the right way to learn how to give feedback quickly and in the right way because you got 18 reps. You better be going through it fast.
Yep. Segment, tear them out,
So
that type of thing. Don't let them know what tier they're in, but yeah, tear them out.
yeah. So um no, that's a great point, and like I always think of like coaching as a mechanism too. When you think about going back to some of the goals, you know, you mentioned this, you start, tiering your reps into certain buckets and categories. Like those A reps, no one's ever set a goal for them in their life. They're doing whatever goal they're getting, they're adding 10, 20, 30,
Yep.
50, 100% to it, right?
Yep.
If their
Every time.
leadership team says, I need to go do XYZ, they're going to go do XYZ twice or
Yep.
4 times or 5 times, right? And it's an easy way to help dial in how to coach, who to coach, and making sure you're setting the right expectations.
Yeah, I mean the best reps I know, literally when they get their quota, they immediately double it, triple it, quadruple it, right? So if their quota is $1 million, in their head, their quota is $2 million. And then they back
100%.
into the numbers of what it takes to hit that 2 million. Now they might not hit that 2 million, but they'll crush that 1 million.
Absolutely. That's the whole point, right? Like you're going to blow through it. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to hit those accelerators, and you're not going to
Yep.
have to worry about getting to your quota. Like if you're letting someone else choose the game that you play, it's going to be a tough one.
Gonna be a tough one. I always say if you're not setting goals, somebody else is dictating your path. I mean,
Um,
as simple as that, right? So, I mean, if you're setting goals, then it's your path, and like this is what your focus point on, and so that's why I think you look for that. You teach them how to set goals, right? Like yeah, you can use the SMART formula: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely, or you can use the dumb formula. It's DUMB, right? I forget what they actually stand for, but it's like ridiculous, audacious, huge goals that you can go for. But yeah, I mean, it is. You can tend to see it, right? 9 times out of 10 when somebody's not hitting their targets, it's because they've kind of gotten away from their goal setting and the strategy around what it's going to take to get there. But if you are not setting goals and then figuring out what to get there, again, somebody else is dictating your path.
which you bring up a good point is like, the whole purpose of the goal setting, to your point, is why does it matter to begin with?
Yeah.
And the point of the goal is so everyone knows what feedback they should be getting, which coaching they should be getting, what types of coaching they should be getting. And you can really see and capture how personalized coaching. So you're starting to use things like AI, which give you
Hmm.
access and the ability to really get into the weeds and kind of understand how the full week, full month, full quarter is going
Hmm.
versus an individual call that, where you might be looking to find that one issue or that one problem that's bugging everybody. And you can
Hmm.
see it has an effect. Like to your point, you can't do enough of it, right? I mean, there's the ROI, the benefits of personalized coaching and how that affects whether it's the company's performance or your individual goals. Like we're all not doing enough.
No. Well, and again, like we take these swaths of like that everybody, okay, we put, you know, revenue target, we put bonuses as goals. Some of us aren't as motivated by money. You know what I mean? Like I was early in my career, right? And if you put a goal out there when it came to cash and I was going to hit my accelerator, man, there's no question I'd be on the top of that leaderboard. As a 49-year-old man right now with a wife and daughter, you know what I mean? Like, the cash is cool, but man, I'd much rather have time back. I'd rather have an extra week or two of vacation with my family. Like, so you might be like, oh, we're gonna put this huge incentive plan together, and yeah, it'll resonate with two, three, four, five people on the team, but everybody else, and it's also demoralizing. Here's one where let's go to goal setting, where we set these goals in the leaderboards, and 9 times out of 10, the leaderboards are always like the big outcome, right? Like your revenue target, the number of meetings you were able to generate, those type of things. And let's be real here. There are people who are always going to be on the top of that list because they just are that good at what they do. And do you know how demoralizing that is to the rest of the team when you're constantly seeing Sarah as the number one revenue generator? So, like when you do a call blitz, say Sarah's just an animal on the phones, right? She's just unbelievable on the phones, and everybody else is okay, right? Well, when you do a call blitz and you set the one metric of whoever gets the most meetings, and Sarah's almost always at the top of that list just because that's her skill set, that's what she's great at. When it comes time for the call blitz, and I'm not Sarah, I'm walking into it being like, what's the point? I'm just gonna
Yeah.
check the boxes here because Sarah's always gonna be up the top. I don't, this is why should I even try? So that's why you have to go back to the individualized personalized components and segment down different goals for different people, or different ways for people to be on the leaderboard that might motivate each different type of person. You know what I mean? Like maybe
The
one
be-
could be
the
talk
best
time.
manager, yeah, I mean the best managers always know what motivates each individual person on that
Yep.
team. Is it a mortgage,
Yep.
right? I had a CRO once he's like, I'm not hiring someone if they don't have debt, right?
Yeah. My old
Maybe
boss
not
said he
quite
likes
that
his sale.
extreme.
My old boss says he likes his sales reps to have PhDs, and I was like, "What?" He goes, "No, no, no, poor, hungry, and driven." I was like, "Oh, okay."
There you go, right? And even when you're like talking or interviewing, like one of the things I try and tell my leadership team, or even do I ask this question myself is, why did you even get into sales? Like,
Hmm.
can you even answer that question? Because that's what starts the person, the personalized coaching right there is, are you
Yep.
looking, what are you trying to do?
Yep.
What does your 1 year plan look like? What does your 6 month plan look like? Or,
Hmm.
where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, and that way you push them in the right direction.
Yep. That's it.
So,
That's it.
um, personalized coaching, I know we talked a lot about, but in
Hmm.
terms of hitting quotas, helping businesses grow, you can see some really phenomenal statistics and numbers here. And that's the thing is numbers are great. They tell a story, but it doesn't make coaching any easier.
No, no, it
So,
doesn't.
but so AI science, right? Like
Hmm.
moving to this world, AI is rapidly changing. I take your approach. I think on any given day, I wake up in fear that AI is going to replace sales, and then I realize I think AI is doing a lot more damage
Yeah.
than good right now. So
Yeah.
you can easily tell which messages are
Oh God.
have some thoughtfulness and which ones don't.
Hmm.
But to your point, AI is there's a lot of value if you use it in the right way.
Yes.
And one of those ways is coaching.
Yes. Absolutely.
Um, and so helping sales managers get to um, the perfect coaching. I always like to say perfect practice makes
Hmm.
perfection. You can't
Hmm.
practice the wrong thing and expect to be great at
Right.
whatever you're
Yeah.
practicing wrong, right? That doesn't exist.
Hmm.
And so AI gives us so much more data points and so many more different opportunities to dive into the weeds. Um, how does this look for you right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, I think to your point, when done right, right, when leveraged the right way, I look at say I look at AI in general as augmentation, not automation. Anybody who's trying to automate with AI, I think like I said earlier, is a fool's errand. And I don't and I think everybody has this stance, but I've been saying it for a while, which is I don't think we're not gonna get replaced by AI yet. Um, that's a yet. But we are going to get replaced by other sales reps who learn and managers and coaches and companies who learn how to use AI. And I think that's the difference, right? Is if you can learn how to use this the right way, it can be a superpower for you, your reps, your managers, your whole team. And I think that's what the beauty to me of the coaching is it listens to every call. And you can, again, regardless of your methodology, the beauty of any AI model, forget about, any specific one is it knows all the methodologies. You know what I mean? Like if you just went into ChatGPT right now and said BANT, it would know exactly what BANT is. If you say medic,
Mhm.
it would know exactly what medic is. And so if you can combine that with learning about me as a person and my nuances and those type of things, and then marry that to your sales methodology, whatever that is. And that's why I think it's important to understand. Um, you sit there and you're like, okay, to your point, like bad coaching on bad processes is bad, right? So we can't control what your sales methodology is and whether it's a good one or bad one. So that's I think the first part is we have to start with a foundation of what does good look like, right? For us as an organization. And then once we understand what good looks like, then we can use these AI models to listen and coach towards what good looks like. And I think we can figure out what good looks like with AI because we can take an analysis of all the different reps on the team and figure out what's working, what's not working in aggregate, and then peel out ooh, this is the best way to handle that objection. This is the best way to get next steps. This is the best way to do that. And then build that kind of, okay, this is what a great call, whatever might look like. Then moving forward, the AI then can now marry up my conversation and check off the boxes to see if I'm doing each one of these things the right way. Right. So that's where I think and the beauty of that is, like I said earlier, is it's now instant. It's now not like I had a call today and now I'm going to wait until the end of the week to get some feedback on that. Now the call just happens, boom, in my inbox. I get an email that says, "Great job, John. Here's all the different things you did well. Here's all the things you did not so well. And by the way, here's a couple of videos that you might was like, so here's a quick example, right? Hey, John, you did a really good job building rapport, but you didn't really get to the pain of the clients, right? You asked them okay questions, but you never really identified true pain and the impact that pain was having on the client. Hey, why don't you watch this 5-minute video on how to uncover pain and how to get to impact, right? So now I'm getting direct, immediate feedback. I'm getting like maybe some little snippets on how I can improve myself. And the AI is aggregating all that information up to a manager, can look at the entire group and say, are there trends here? Hey, my entire team has a hard time understanding problems and pain. So now let me go invest in some training for the group on that topic. Even though John, I need to work with him on his closing techniques. Deren, I need to work with you on developing rapport here a little bit. Those type of things. So there's individual components to this. But if you're going to invest in a training, you need to see on aggregate what does my team need, and AI can surface all of that up for you very easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think of all the different ways we communicate with customers as well and how to capture all that information, it's impossible to jump from a call recording to an email and a
Yeah.
video call and then an on-site and say, hey, this is this is the feedback I've delivered from all these different places. This is what I've gathered. And it's funny, like we were talking about it this morning. We were actually at the beginning of this call. I was talking about indecision this morning is our biggest, close loss reason, right? Like across the board. It's been that way everywhere I've ever been, to be fair, right?
Hmm.
But like figuring out in this market, in today's market, how to solve the indecision piece is probably one of our bigger problem statements, right?
Yep.
And how we solve it. And what we did is we went through each call. There was a lot more than 10 hours spent listening to tens, if not hundreds of calls and trying to figure out, yeah, at what point is the indecision dropping off? And then when you identify it, and we use, some AI tools that we have here internally with our platform, but when you can identify, hey, this as holistically, it doesn't matter your style, doesn't
Right.
matter how you're communicating, but this is where we are struggling. That's a clear business, proposition or need where we can come in and actually provide the right coaching and the right mechanisms to say, hey, doesn't matter who you are. This isn't your fault. It's clearly a team-wide fault. This is our fault. How do we solve this? And or this is how we solve this, and this is how we're going to go about that. And we were talking a little bit about the indecision piece earlier. It's a that's a tough one to fall to dig into because oftentimes it's gone dark or it's bucketed in this big bucket of the Salesforce black hole, right? Where the close loss reason isn't going to give you that full picture. And it's all in the communication that happened. And that's the hard part to extract out.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, we can't be everywhere, right? I
Yeah.
think that's the problem. And there was a question from Kurt about, hey, we do trade shows, right? And then the follow-up phone conversation. So I think there's a lot of tools, right, including this one, where you can have it on your phone, right? So you can have the app, the AI app on your phone, and so what I do is sometimes I'll just leave it there, and it'll pick up the conversation, and then it could potentially, or even if you don't, right, like record the call, like record the conversation that you're having, and then bring that and upload it to the system, and it can coach there too. So I think there's a
Mhm.
lot of different ways, but the coaching component to this is what happened on that at the trade show that then is going to dictate how that conversation goes with the follow-up call, right? Because once you have that follow-up call, that's hopefully, because the way I look at trade shows is too many, well, the sidebar here on this, too many sales reps, what they'll do is they'll find, like somebody comes to a trade show booth and they'll show some type of interest, and the rep will be like, oh my God, blah, 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 and they'll talk to them, they'll ask them all these questions, they'll give them all this feedback, and they basically run out of stuff to say. So there's really no need for a follow-up call. You know what I mean? So what you should think about as a trade call is like, okay, it's interesting enough. I'm not going to say too much, but after they show, it's like, okay, cool. Why don't we schedule a follow-up call here to have this conversation in much more detail, right? Book it at the trade show. That's where the AI can then listen to that call, right? I think the live stuff, I think with JustCall, you can record calls and sentiment and all that other stuff. And like I said, just have it right there for you. I think a manager, I think that's what you can do both, right? Where a manager should be kind of evaluating the trade and seeing how the reps are talking to, those type of things and doing coaching like in the moment because you're in the moment at that, right? After that rep gets off the call, maybe there's a little break. Hey, Deren, come over here. I heard what you were saying over there. Next time, don't ask that. Do this instead. And I think that should be super active because it's in the moment and you're all together, right? Whereas the coaching of, okay, now what happens? Now we have to bring that context into this call. And if you can record it on your phone or whatever it is, then it can be tailored over to that. So yeah, I think that's, you can balance it both ways, but again, it's not one or the other. It's augmentation, not automation here.
All right, so Kurt threw us a bone because there's our personalized coaching, right? So
Right?
if you're at a trade show and you're trying to use a certain solution and it's not going to be there within in your pocket, like it's not going to work, right?
Right.
And that's the perfect example. But yeah, there are a bunch of different ways. I mean, you can literally just record and upload that into your whether it's your solution or just call. But the other piece is like with our platform, what we've realized is we're a telephony system, right? So we're
Mhm.
making calls and sending messages, VoIP, and there's so many different ways that you can communicate. And we were speaking, I was speaking to someone from Twilio maybe about 6 months back, and he was telling me, he goes, I think what everyone in the industry wants to know about sales and communication is, you know, some number of years ago, it was door to door. Then it was, making cold calls. Then all of a sudden, email popped up. And now we're kind of in this like gray area where what do we use? What do we have? It's everything, right? And
Yeah, it's everything.
what is the best way, to communicate with someone in the future? It's evolving rapidly, right?
Hmm.
And like you could take that another level. I would say some of the best LinkedIn outreach I get are those, 15-second videos that I
Hmm.
get, right?
Yeah.
Those aren't being dropped into messages yet or into AI and analyzed, and they should be, because that's
Hmm.
that personalized approach. And
Hmm.
um with our platform, it's an app that you can make calls from, and that's where we started from and expanded from there. So Kurt, answer your question, yes, but
Hmm.
I think that just goes back to how do you communicate. You can use AI. We do it here internally, and I know there's lots of metrics on this all over. Talk about influencers on LinkedIn, but you're sending messages to your client, via SMS or WhatsApp. They're more likely going to close those deals. But
Hmm.
those are just being tracked and logged in Salesforce as an activity, if at all, maybe. They're definitely not being discussed in one-on-ones and how to get better and what the right method is. And are you reaching out to the right person? And is it the right personas, the decision makers, and everything else that goes into it?
So much, so much. I mean, I don't envy sales reps today at all, because the pressure from AI, the tolerance from clients, and that type of stuff. I mean, to your point, like it used to be a lot simpler. You know what I mean? We had the information, we could call you up, we could show it to you. You liked it, you didn't like it, whatever. Now the client has all the information they need. And so if we're not getting coached and we're still working on old school stuff, like we're gonna get smoked. Yeah, it is painful to me to watch like how we've turned a whole generation of sales reps into robots, and now they're getting replaced by robots.
Yeah. To your point, assisted, or replaced
Mhm.
by the ones that can use it better. Like I do
Yeah.
think that's a key point. Like when you think about coaching, and like I can guarantee, there's probably I don't know if you have any data points or seen any data points on this,
Hmm.
but most companies are not using some sort of methodology for AI in their coaching.
Oh
And
no.
you can see the difference when, hey, are you using ChatGPT? Is
Yep.
that occurring in a one-on-one?
Hmm.
Back to the feedback piece, right? Like if you're not giving the right feedback to the right person at the right time, you're not going to get the right benefit,
Yeah.
the most out of it. So
No, you're not. And you're putting yourself in, even senior reps are putting themselves at a disadvantage. I'll give you an example. There's a rep that I did a workshop with, and he had no experience in sales, zero. Okay. And he wanted to get into sales, and he decided he wanted to go work for Microsoft. So he used AI with no sales experience. He used AI to prep for the interview, to understand the nuances of Microsoft solutions, and figure out what questions he should be asking, and do a little bit of role play with objection handling, that type of stuff. He got the job, and because he used AI to figure things out. I mean, think about Microsoft, the breadth and depth of solutions that they have, like mind numbing, right? So within 2 years of him being at Microsoft, he's the number one sales rep for mid-market sales in 2 years. And so
wow.
you have all these old school sales reps being like, yeah, relationship, I'm never going to get replaced by technology and da 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 because I know my shit. Wrong, wrong. Like you're going to get smoked by that kid who figures out how to use AI to put themselves in the position and then add value to the client. Like I have this one behind me, right? It's Iron Man. So it's an Iron Man mask because that is the mentality that we have to have moving forward here. Because if you think of, Iron Man like Tony Stark, right? As a human, he's got it all. He's rich. He's good looking. He's super smart, right? Jerk. Anyways, but if he went out there and tried to fight all these aliens by himself, he'd get killed as a human. So, right, what does he have to do? He has to create the suit. Okay, well, the suit's cool, but the suit's, if you remember that first suit, it was kind of clunky and it broke apart in the desert and all that stuff. He didn't really become Iron Man until he added the AI to it, until he added Jarvis. And now you got the AI, the suit, and the human, and you got Iron Man, and you go out there and whoop some ass. And so that mentality of, yeah, I got the tech that can listen, but now can it give me feedback, right? Now, how do I use the AI to augment some of the stuff that I'm doing and give me feedback, do the admin stuff that I don't need to do so I can maximize my time in front of the client and get better all the time. Because if you are not getting better right now, you will be replaced. That's not an if, it's a when.
Do you like in I guess whenever I think about how to best optimize it and think about some of the best sellers that are out there, it's that curiosity piece, that
Oh
work
yeah.
ethic piece you alluded to earlier. And
Hmm.
a few years ago, I started breaking things down into being able to coach from a hard skill perspective, your numbers, updating your
Hmm.
sales force, whatever it is, to your soft skills. And like,
Yeah.
that's to me, like, updating your sales force and those types of things everyone's doing that. It's learning how to be curious, right?
Yeah.
And learning how to get more information on your at your fingertips.
Yep.
When you think about the soft skill perspective, is that where you think like AI and coaching and management is really like the biggest impact can be made, or is it just, holistically across the board?
No, I think it alleviates the need to train the hard skills, quite frankly. So it allows us to focus on the soft skills because I don't think the hard skills are going to be necessary. I don't need to update CRM anymore. I don't
Yeah.
need to take notes anymore. I don't need to, like my forecast can quite frankly be automated if I click a few buttons the right way. You know what I mean? So all that hard skill of like, okay, even quite frankly, even product knowledge, like
Hmm.
I don't need to know product knowledge because it's literally one ask of my internal GPT that, and this is where I tell reps like if you don't think if we don't think we're in trouble here, just do yourselves a favor, go into ChatGPT, pick one of them, I don't care, and just pretend like you're a customer. Pretend like, or you pretend like you're a prospect for your solution. So, for instance, what I would do is to go in and say, "Hey, I'm John Barrow. So I'm sorry. I'm a VP of sales at a 50-person sales team. I got 20 SDRs. I got 30 AEs. Here's my challenges. Here's my ACV. Here's my blah, blah, blah. I'm looking to sales. I'm looking at some sales training. JB Sales is the sales training I'm looking to invest in. Tell me what I need to know about the JB Sales training. Good, bad, ugly, pros, cons. And by the way, how does he compare? How does his training compare to the top three vendors on G2 in that category? And what nuance there? And when you realize in a 5-minute conversation, you get more value out of that than some kid who's going to just drone on with Bant questions and drone through a stupid demo. You realize how much trouble we were in. But if you think of that, so that's the bad part. The good part is I now have this tool that can give me the answers at the drop of a dime. So, Deren, when you and I are in a conversation and you ask me a conversation, I work at Microsoft and I got this massive, and I'm like, oh crap, I can't remember all of this stuff. Hey, client just asked me this, like, hey, Deren, could you hold on 2 seconds here? Let me just ask real quick on my internal systems because I think I know the answer to that, but I might not. So let me just do this. Yep, bing, bing, bing. Oh, actually, you know what? It's this one. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Like that is
It
gold.
I mean, it's mind blowing, and it's going back to I love that specific use case because it goes back to like the heart of like we're out like AI is just helping us outsell like our prospects outsell themselves before they even get to the conversation.
So,
And
and sorry, and,
go
and
ahead.
that's why I didn't really ultimately answer your question about the soft skills because that's why I think it's all soft skills. It's
Yeah,
all soft skills. You know what's coming back in vogue? You can hear the CEO in NVIDIA talk about this. You can hear Sam Altman talk about this, where he said, like, don't go to school to be a coder anymore. Don't go to school to be an engineer. Those liberal arts degrees that we used to laugh at and nobody used to get a job with because it was you were kind of a yeah, you idiot, you're liberal arts, good for you. That's now coming back in vogue. Like that's
yeah.
now people who are creative, people who have the soft skills, people who can have a conversation with somebody. You know what I mean? That is off a script, that doesn't sound like I'm being interrogated. Like people who can develop rapport, but rapport the right way. Because rapport with you, Deren, is different than rapport with me. I just did a post on this morning. If you look at it on LinkedIn, I said, dear sales reps, doing meaningless rapport building at the beginning of a conversation isn't right for everybody. There are some people that do like talking about the sports and the weather and all this other stuff. I'm not one of them. When you're selling to me, get to the fucking point. Like you
Absolutely.
do not give, like, here's an example. I won't. I'll engage. Yeah, the Celtics. They beat the Cavs last night. Cavs, yeah, they're gonna go for round two and banner number 19, right? Like, fine, I'll have that. But if it's a 30-minute meeting, the only thing that's going through my head when you're doing this little rapport building with me is, all right, kid, you got 20 minutes left. You got 15 minutes left. You got 10, you know what I mean? And I'm not gonna give you extra time at the end of this call in order, because you developed rapport with me. Now, on the
Yeah.
flip side, there are other people that need that. They want that, right? Because if you dive right in, you're so guess what? AI can learn my personality. AI can learn this and say, you know what, John, Deren does not like, help. You need to develop different types of skills for different type of people you meet with. When somebody like Deren comes on, you got to take this approach from a rapport building standpoint, which kind of, ooh, soft skill. Okay,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's where it's all at. We are going to just be the facilitators of information, not the givers of information.
I agree. I call it like rapport building is changing, right? It's not that it
Yeah.
doesn't exist, but the right way to do it is with AI and talk about your darn business. Talk about what's going to make an impact. That's rapport building now. Like it's not, and it's funny, you also touch upon like the education portion of it. Look, I don't remember the exact date, like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, more than a year ago. But like at some point, I went from hiring reps that used to, have door-to-door experience into, junior entry
Yep.
level positions, or they worked at the well-known enterprise management,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they had degrees in sales, and I was like,
Oh
what
God.
is,
Yeah.
where is
Oh,
this
well,
coming
degrees in
from?
sales. Well, actually, degrees in sales, that's actually my hope here. Okay. So the challenge is this is that all the grunt work that I did, like you and I did early in our sales careers, as much as I hated it, like updating CRM, like literally taking handwritten notes, making cold calls, getting my ass handed to me, all that stuff. As much as I hated all that stuff, it built me into the sales rep I am today. So I now have context, I can pull stories, I can relate to different people, right? Well, the problem is that AI is now taking over a large chunk of that grunt work, that stuff where you kind of earned the right to be a sales rep, right? So my fear is like, where are the future sales reps going to come from? Because I don't know how you develop in this world. I mean, yes, you can use AI, but now we're actually seeing it in universities. I mean, the
Yeah.
Bryant University here in Providence, Rhode Island, it is like I was down in the sales school 2 weeks ago, and they have this sales conference, and you sit down and they do role playing and everything else. And I would, yeah, Darren, I sat there and I was one of the coaches and evaluators of the different. Like I was like, I'd hire these reps over 80% of the reps that I've trained right now. Like because they're learning the fundamentals in sales like they never did before. So they're not going to start in sales at zero and have to develop, right? I think the days of going and get your piece of crap degree and then kind of being like, oh, can't make any money, so let me get into sales, let me try that out. And starting at zero, I think those days are kind of over because I think AI is just taking over all of that small stuff. But if you can use it to coach them and get them developed, you can expedite that process.
I mean, I was to be really clear, I was saying it's a good thing too. I mean, I
Yeah.
wish I had that opportunity
Oh
and
my
like
God.
it's insane. We don't work these leads the best that we should, but we have more universities using our software than ever
Hmm.
before. And it's because of this. And that's the thing is you can recreate those tough, gritty
Yeah.
trainings with the AI models, and there you go. Right.
Yeah.
So um yeah, it's an interesting shift.
Yeah. Trade shows. Yep. Cool. Yeah. Do we want to answer anybody have any questions out there? Anybody else? I know we only have a few minutes left, but if anybody has any questions in the chat, please feel free to throw them out there. Um, but yeah, I think that I mean, Darren, what you guys are working on is without question to me is the force multiplier here, right? I think for teams who are strapped with resources, teams who are strapped with time and all that other stuff, being able to use something like JustCall and to be able to help listen to, coach, and engage, and then aggregate up is I don't understand why you wouldn't do this. I just don't understand. I mean, find me a company that says they're aces when it comes to coaching you know, good luck. If I bet you if I sat in on some of those coaching calls, I would be able to knock down your aces pretty quick. So this is
Absolutely.
where you need to use the technology. This is by far the best use case for AI that I could possibly imagine. All the other stuff, I play around with it in all the other areas, but I think coaching is hands down the number one application for AI in today's sales world.
That's, like you said, like communication in general, right? With the whole purpose of communicating is grow your business, grow your career, personal
Yeah.
personal goals. And it's becoming more watered down and complex and
Hmm.
harder to use. And that's where, AI and solutions like ours really can help you, kind of wrap everything under one umbrella to paint the correct picture versus
Yeah.
those broad strokes we were talking about earlier in the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. It's it's the personalization. I mean, the last piece, and we all know where this is going, man. This thing is going to be iOS 18. This is your personal assistant. This is going to be your AI. It's going to know everything about you, and it's going to be your personalized AI assistant that is going to get you everything that you want to get. And so while that happens, we might as well start, leveraging it in our work, not just our personal lives.
Yeah, absolutely. So, awesome. Well, I think we're right at time. This was a fun conversation.
Yeah.
The hot topic with your point, and yeah, thanks for everyone for joining, and obviously thanks for joining as well, John.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I really appreciate this and getting the word out there about this because I think just more people need to know about it, quite frankly. I don't think enough people understand it or appreciate it or still think it's like, ah, yeah, whatever. No, no, no. This is it. This is different than the for all those old guard out there like me who've been in sales for 30 plus years. You might be like, ah, it's kind of like the internet. I was around when the internet, yeah, yeah, I kind of did this wrong, wrong, wrong. The internet was this, and it kind of was like, oh wow, yeah, this is this. This is hockey stick. This AI stuff is hockey stick stuff here. And if you don't jump on this train right now, you will be left behind. And it's again, it's not my opinion. It's fact. I'm watching it happen. I work with sales teams every day, and I watch it happen. So the more successful ones that are using JustCall and those type of tools are the ones that are accelerating, and the ones who aren't are the ones who are falling behind.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your
Yeah.
day. And again, thanks, John. It was a pleasure as always.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Good seeing y'all. Cheers.
Yeah. Bye.